What if the most important clue in a life-or-death situation wasn't a fingerprint, a weapon, or a piece of DNA, but a scent? Not the smell of gunpowder or decay, but the invisible chemical odor of pure terror, completely masked by a gentle, loving smile. This is the story of how a friendly Labrador with a happy tail taught his human partner to see the world not with her eyes, but with his nose, and in doing so unraveled a perfect family to expose the horrifying lie hidden within. The Greyhound bus terminal in downtown Chicago is a special kind of chaos. It's a symphony of the city's grit, a place where beginnings and endings collide every single minute. The air is thick with the metallic tang of diesel fumes, the greasy promise of 100 different fast food meals, and the faint underlying scent of desperation. On the Friday afternoon of Labor Day weekend, that symphony was playing at full volume. The echoing voice on the intercom announcing delayed departures to Omaha and Cleveland was the drumbeat, the shuffling feet of 1,000 travelers was the rhythm, and the cries of tired children were the melody. It was the perfect place for someone to get lost, the perfect place for a secret to disappear into the crowd. Navigating this sea of humanity was Officer Eva Rostova and her partner Buddy. Eva, a decade-long veteran of the K-9 unit, wore the city's cynicism like a second skin. She was sharp observant and trusted hard evidence above all else. Hunches and feelings were for rookies. She dealt in facts and training in the predictable and the proven. Her partner, a 6-year-old yellow Labrador retriever, was in many ways her polar opposite. Buddy wasn't a fearsome German shepherd or a high-strung Malinois. He was pure, unadulterated sunshine on 4 legs. His tail was a metronome of constant happy motion, and his big brown eyes had a way of disarming even the most hardened criminals. He was trained to find things that go boom, a bomb-sniffing dog with a spotless record. But his greatest gift wasn't his training, it was his nature. You see, we humans live in a world of sight and sound. A dog like Buddy lives in a world of scent. And it's a world that is unimaginably more detailed than our own. Imagine being able to smell the past, the lingering scent of the person who sat in that plastic chair an hour ago. Imagine being able to smell emotion, the spike of cortisol from the student terrified of missing her bus, or the surge of adrenaline from the man who just got a life-changing text message. A Labrador's nose contains up to 300 million olfactory receptors. A human has about 6 million. It's the difference between seeing the world in black and white and seeing it in a million colors of thermal, emotional, and biochemical data. For Buddy, the bus station wasn't just a loud, crowded room. It was a library of 1,000 stories all written in scent. And he was about to read the most terrifying story in the building. Their patrol had been mind-numbingly routine. A sweep past the lockers, a slow walk down the boarding lines, another loop by the ticketing counters. Eva was already thinking about the mountain of paperwork waiting for her at the station, her mind a million miles away. Buddy, as always, was completely present, his nose twitching, cataloging the world, his tail wagging its steady, happy beat. It was just another Friday. And then it wasn't. The change was so small, Eva almost missed it. The metronome stopped. Buddy's tail, which had been sweeping a wide, joyful arc, froze mid-wag. His body, usually a relaxed bundle of golden fur, went low and soft. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't alerting to explosives. This was something different. A quiet, almost inaudible woof escaped his snout. He planted his paws firmly on the grimy linoleum floor and pulled gently but firmly against his leash. Eva followed his gaze, expecting to see a dropped bag or a suspicious package, but Buddy wasn't looking at an object. He was staring with an intensity that chilled Eva to the bone directly at a family. And not just any family. The perfect family. Of course. Here is the second part of the script, continuing directly from where the first part. They were a postcard from a life Eva Rostova only saw in magazines. The father, tall and handsome with an easy smile, gently rocked a sleepy-looking younger girl in his arms. The mother, elegant and composed, was fixing the collar on the older girl's jacket, her movements full of practiced care. The 2 sisters, maybe 9 and 11, were quiet. their eyes downcast, which Eva initially chalked up to the exhaustion of a long day of travel. They were the picture of middle-class stability, the kind of family that blended into the background precisely because of how perfectly normal they seemed. Eva's brain, trained to spot the out-of-place, the jagged edge, the person who didn't belong, found nothing. Her professional assessment screamed false alarm. "Come on, bud, leave it," she commanded, giving a gentle but firm tug on his leash. This was the command he'd obeyed 1,000 times. It meant, "Job's over, let's move." Buddy didn't budge. He lowered his head even further, his body language shifting from alert to something else, something that looked almost like sorrow. And that's when Eva noticed it. The small, repetitive movement. The older sister, the one whose collar was just fixed, was standing stock still, but her right hand, hidden from her parents' view and pressed against the side of her own faded jeans, was not still. Her index finger was tapping, a tiny, almost imperceptible rhythm against the denim. Tap, 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 tap. Eva dismissed it as a nervous habit, a child's mindless fidgeting. But the narrator in our story, the one who sees all, knows it wasn't mindless at all. It was a language, the oldest and most universal language of desperation. ... SOS. It sounds like something from a spy movie, doesn't it? But these silent, desperate cries for help happen in our world far more often than we think. You may have seen the signal on social media, the hand raised palm forward, tucking the thumb and closing the fingers over it. It's a silent, universal signal for victims of domestic abuse to show they're in danger. In 2021, a missing teenage girl in Kentucky used that very signal from inside a car, and a passing motorist recognized it and called 911, saving her life. These signals are not fiction. They are a lifeline, a last-ditch effort to communicate the unspeakable when you're trapped in plain sight. This little girl, surrounded by 1,000 people, was sending out her own message in a bottle, hoping, praying that someone was smart enough to read it. Eva couldn't read it. Her eyes saw a fidgety kid. But Buddy couldn't see the tapping, but he could smell it. He could smell the silent, suffocating panic that was fueling those tiny movements. The scent of a child trying to scream without making a sound. "Buddy, heel!" Eva commanded again, her voice now edged with a professional sharpness. This was no longer a request. It was an order. For a K-9 officer, disobeying a direct command is one of the most serious failures of training imaginable. And yet Buddy did it. He looked back at Eva, his big brown eyes filled with an expression of such profound insistence that it stopped her cold. And then he sat down. A simple, quiet act of civil disobedience. He was not moving. He was not leaving these children. And that was it. That was the anomaly. Not the perfect family, but the perfectly trained dog who was now refusing to be perfect. The jarring, undeniable fact that her partner, her loyal, obedient friend, was telling her that her eyes were lying. For the first time all day, Officer Eva Rostova stopped seeing a family. She started seeing a puzzle. And the first terrifying piece was a loving dog who was willing to disobey his entire world of training to make her pay attention. The question was no longer if something was wrong. The question was, what? For a police officer, there are two kinds of fear. There's the hot, immediate fear of a physical threat, a weapon, a chase, a sudden act of violence. Then there's the other kind, the cold, quiet fear of being wrong. The fear of ruining an innocent person's life, of losing the public's trust, of a career-ending lawsuit, all because you made the wrong call. As Officer Eva Rostova stood there frozen in the river of travelers, it was this cold fear that wrapped around her. Every rational part of her brain, every ounce of her decade of training was screaming at her to walk away. The mental checklist was a series of flashing red lights. No visible signs of abuse, no obvious distress. The subjects appear calm, no probable cause. In the eyes of the law, she had nothing, absolutely nothing. Harassing a family on their holiday travels because her dog was acting strange was a one-way ticket to a disciplinary hearing. Her mind was caught in a dangerous psychological trap, one that affects us all, from police officers to pilots to ordinary people. It's called the normalcy bias. The normalcy bias is the voice in your head that insists everything is okay simply because it looks okay. It's the dangerous belief that because a disaster has never happened to you before, it never will. It's the reason people stay in their homes during evacuation orders thinking, the last storm wasn't that bad. It's the reason we ignore the strange noise in our car's engine thinking, it's probably nothing. It is a powerful cognitive instinct to believe that our world is safe and predictable. And in that moment, it was telling Eva that this was just a tired family and her dog was just having an off day. To act would be to break the comforting illusion of normalcy. To act would be a gamble. She was about to pull Buddy away to finally choose logic over instinct to let the postcard family disappear into the crowd forever. But just as she tensed the leash, the father turned his head and his eyes met hers. He had noticed her watching. He gave her a smile. It wasn't a nervous smile or a guilty one. It was perfect. It was warm, tired, and deeply reassuring. It was the kind of smile that said, "I see you, officer. Thanks for keeping us safe. We're all good here." It was a smile designed to end suspicion, and it would have worked on any human. But Buddy didn't see the smile. He smelled it, and behind the curtain of that friendly expression he smelled the lightning-fast spike of pure, unadulterated fear. The chemical signature of a predator that has just realized it's being watched by another predator. In the quiet chaos of the terminal, a sound rumbled up from Buddy's chest, a sound Eva had heard maybe twice in their entire 6 years together. A low, guttural growl. It was the sound of loyalty overriding obedience, the sound of instinct screaming a warning that was impossible to ignore. A friendly, happy-go-lucky Labrador should never ever growl at a man who is smiling. It was a profound and terrifying contradiction. It was a tear in the fabric of reality. And for Eva, it was the only piece of evidence she needed. The gamble was no longer an option. It was a duty. Her own fear vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. She let the leash go slack, giving Buddy a soft pat on the head, a silent, "I hear you." Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her face became a mask of calm professionalism. She was no longer going to be a spectator. She was going to step into the picture. She began to walk forward, not with the aggressive stride of an officer making an arrest, but with the casual, non-threatening gait of someone about to ask for directions. She would use Buddy's friendly appearance, the very thing that made him seem so harmless, as her primary tool. She would use the family's own perfect facade against them. The clock was ticking. The boarding call for the bus to St. Louis echoed through the terminal. She had one shot to get this right. As she closed the distance, she rehearsed the opening line in her head, a polite, smiling question that would be the first move in a silent, high-stakes chess match. The game was about to begin. Officer Eva Rostova closed the final few feet, stopping just beside the family. Buddy sat obediently at her side, a picture of calm. The father looked up, his rehearsed, friendly smile already in place. Eva offered a polite, professional one in return. "Evening, folks. Officer Rostova, K-9 Unit," she said, her voice even and calm. "Sorry to bother you on your travels. We're just conducting some random screenings as part of holiday security protocols. Would you mind stepping over to the side with me for a moment?" It was a perfectly reasonable request, but a lie, and the man knew it. For a fraction of a second, a flicker of pure panic flashed in his eyes before being buried under a layer of annoyed cooperation. "Of course, officer. Anything to help," he said, his voice a little too smooth. Eva directed him towards a quiet alcove while her partner, Officer Miller, who had been watching from a distance, calmly approached the mother. The first rule of breaking a rehearsed story is to separate the storytellers. As Miller engaged the woman, Eva focused on the man. Buddy, on a quiet command, left Eva's side and padded over to the two girls sitting a few feet away, a silent golden guardian. "Just need to confirm a few details for the log, sir," Eva said, pulling out a notepad. "Full names and dates of birth for the children, please." The man rattled them off confidently. Eva jotted them down. "Okay. And what's your older daughter's teacher's name at her elementary school?" The man's smile tightened. "Ms. Peterson." "Yes, Peterson." Meanwhile, across the way, Officer Miller was asking the woman the same question. "Oh, that's easy," she said with a laugh. "It's Mr. Gable. The kids adore him." The first crack in the picture had appeared. Eva pressed on. "What's her best friend's name? Her favorite cartoon? Is she allergic to anything?" With each question, the man's answers became more hesitant, more generic. The details that a parent would know instantly were a fog to him. The cracks were spreading, threatening to shatter the entire facade. But the true breakthrough wasn't happening in the interrogation. It was happening in the silence beside the vending machines. The older girl, who had been trembling tentatively, reached out and placed her hand on Buddy's head. The dog didn't move, just leaned into her touch, letting out a soft, low sigh. He wasn't a police dog in that moment. He was just a friend, a safe harbor in a storm of fear. This simple act of gentle, unconditional comfort was the key that unlocked everything. The girl looked up past the officers, past the crowd, and her eyes met Eva's. Her lips parted, and a single earth-shattering whisper cut through the noise of the terminal. "He's not my daddy." It was over. Backed into a corner, their stories crumbling and faced with the child's statement, the couple's composure dissolved. And the truth that spilled out was far darker and more twisted than a simple kidnapping. They weren't random traffickers. They were the girl's aunt and uncle. And the girl's parents weren't waiting for them at home. They were dead. 2 months prior, they had been killed in a fiery car crash on a quiet country road, a crash that had been ruled a tragic, horrible accident. But it wasn't an accident. It was a murder meticulously planned and executed by these two people. Why? For the oldest reason in the book: money. A multi-million-dollar inheritance trust fund that was left solely in the children's names. Their plan wasn't just to abduct the girls, it was to disappear with them to Mexico, gain legal control, and bleed the trust dry. This is the most terrifying lesson of all. The most chilling crimes aren't always committed by shadowy figures in dark alleys. The real monsters are often the ones who are supposed to love you, the ones who smile at you, who fix your collar, who hold your hand. Evil doesn't always have a scary face. Sometimes it has the face of family. The click of handcuffs echoed in the alcove, a sharp metallic sound that officially shattered the perfect picture. The man and woman, their masks of civility gone, were led away. The girls, now wrapped in blankets provided by paramedics, stood huddled together. They were finally safe from their captors, but they were now adrift in a new, horrifying reality, orphans whose entire lives had been destroyed by greed. The rescue was complete, but the echoes of this crime were just beginning. In the hours and days that followed, the story exploded. The shocking tale of the bus station aunt and the inheritance plot became a media sensation. News cameras camped outside the precinct, and headlines praised the heroic K-9 unit that had foiled a diabolical crime. Buddy, the friendly Labrador, became an overnight celebrity. His happy, furry face splashed across television screens and phone notifications, a golden symbol of good in a story so full of darkness. But Officer Eva Rostova barely noticed the noise. For her, the real story wasn't in the headlines, it was in the quiet moments that came after. It was in the hushed, sterile environment of the Children's Services office, watching 2 little girls being wrapped in the arms of their tearful grandparents. It was seeing the older sister, the brave little soldier, who had tapped out a desperate prayer on her leg, finally letting go, her small body shaking with sobs of grief and relief. It was in the way Buddy, sensing her exhaustion and the emotional weight of the day, rested his heavy head on her knee back at the station, his presence a silent, comforting anchor. She realized then that what had happened in the terminal wasn't magic. Buddy didn't have superpowers. He had something far more profound, a pure, unfiltered connection to the truth. Humans, she thought, are experts at deception. We build walls with polite smiles. We tell lies with our eyes. We hide our fear behind a mask of normalcy. We have learned to navigate a complex world of social cues and unspoken rules, and in the process, we have forgotten how to simply sense. An animal doesn't care about what something is supposed to look like. A dog doesn't understand politeness or social pressure. They understand energy. They understand chemistry. They understand the language that is spoken beneath our words, the frantic secret language of the heart. Buddy hadn't seen a perfect family. He had smelled a lie. He had smelled the bitter scent of adrenaline from the captors and the heartbreaking odor of cortisol pouring from the terrified children. And he had trusted that truth more than he trusted his own training. The real lesson from that chaotic Friday afternoon wasn't about catching criminals. It was about listening. It was a reminder that in a world that is screaming for our attention, the most important messages are often silent. They are in the child who is too quiet, the friend who says they're fine when their eyes say otherwise, the gut feeling you get that something just isn't right. We all have that instinct. We just let the noise of life drown it out. Heroes don't always wear badges or carry weapons. Sometimes they are small children who refuse to be silenced. And sometimes they walk on four paws with a happily wagging tail and a heart that is pure enough to hear a silent scream from across a crowded room. Thank you for joining us for this incredible story. The bond we share with animals is one of the most powerful and mysterious forces in our lives. If you've ever looked at your own pet and felt that they just know when you're sad or scared or happy, then you understand the heart of this story. We would love to hear from you. In the comments below, please share a moment when your own animal companion showed an amazing intuition or provided you with comfort when you needed it most. Your stories are what build this community. And if this story moved you and you want to hear more tales of courage, loyalty, and the amazing connections that shape our world, please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. Don't forget to give this video a like if it resonated with you. It truly helps us to continue creating and sharing these stories. Until next time, be kind, be aware, and never underestimate the wisdom of a loyal friend.